welcome back to REIFY Recap. This session we are talking momentum, how to optimize your output. All right, so you've got the foundation of a clear vision and a solid game plan. You've got the courage and the energy to act big, and so you do it. You act, and you act big. It is epic. It is awesome. You did it. Problem is, now you're out of juice. You're spent. You pulled together what you needed for that one big act, and now it's over. You had the energy for a singular output. You had the high of success, but then came the crash. And often when we hit that crash, we never recover. So how do you get what's needed for sustained success? How do you get that focus, that stamina, and that energy for a powerful performance that just won't quit? Big picture, you've got to perpetually practice every step of the pathway to success if you want to see lasting results. The pathway is not a one and done type of deal. Sustained success requires persistent, perpetual practice of these principles. You have got to commit fully if you want long-term fulfillment of your endeavors. In the context of this specific session, in order to achieve and maintain sustained success, you need to build momentum. You use significantly more gas accelerating your car from 0 to 30 miles per hour than you do getting it from 30 to 60 miles per hour. And our energy output works in the same way. If you're starting from 0 every single time, you're gonna find yourself burnt out and discouraged. In last session, when we were talking about action, we got you from 0 to 30. Today, we're gonna get you from 30 to the speed of light and keep you there. In order to build up that much needed momentum, you have got to learn how to optimize your output. And don't worry, we're also going to talk about rest in this session as well. Okay, so optimize your output. What do I mean by that? Optimize doesn't just speak to quantity, it also speaks to quality. Optimizing your output means strategically and shrewdly maximizing your quantity and quality in a way where both work harmoniously with each other. Just make sure you're not limiting your focus only to quantity. So let's break this down on a practical, pragmatic level. We're going to look at how to build momentum through optimizing your output and apply this concept to two aspects of our life, personal and professional. If you've been part of this group for some time, it shouldn't surprise you that both your personal and professional life must be in synergy and alignment in order for you to achieve the growth and success that God has designed for you to experience. If you are pouring all your focus and energy into just one or the other, there will be cost and consequences to the one that you are not focusing on. Your personal life is the foundation. Your professional life is the framework and the structure. So, we're going to start by building a solid foundation. Personal life. You've got to develop radical self-awareness and unreserved self-intimacy. We talked about this in last session. We're really going to dig deep into it in this session. Number 2, you've got to intentionally form beneficial habits. We discussed this in the last session, like I said, but we'll keep coming back to it because it is absolutely vital for our growth and success. There are no shortcuts to this one. Radical self-awareness, unreserved self-intimacy. How does that sound to you? How do you feel about the prospect of peeling back all the scars and scabs and shells and walls that you've built up for yourself over the years in response to hurt and pain? How do you feel about getting real with yourself and courageously facing what you're doing to hinder your momentum? Hold back your growth and subconsciously sabotage your success. How do you feel about holding yourself accountable and taking responsibility for the actions and choices that you've made and constructively responding to what you've learned about yourself in a way that facilitates growth and transformation? Sounds kind of scary, doesn't it? Yeah. For many, that thought is incredibly uncomfortable. We don't really want to get to know ourselves. Especially as Christians, it's easy to say, oh, I know myself. My flesh is weak. I just need God to show me what to do, and I'll trust him and do whatever he says. No need to do the extra work on myself. I'll let God do a mighty work through me, right? We talked about that in last session as well. That's just not how God has created us to function in relationship to him. As I said, he wants to work mightily through us, but he requires us to do the necessary work to be a vessel that can handle his mighty, wonder-working power. So, how do we begin to develop this much-needed self-awareness? I've got good news for you. If you've been practicing the steps and strategies of every session we've covered so far, you are well on your way. If you haven't, now you know. Every session of REIFY, even beyond the 7 steps, is and will be designed to help you do exactly that. But beyond that, what are some ways that we can develop this absolutely vital self-awareness and self-intimacy? There are 3 catalysts for conscious self-discovery: community, coach, and creation. The noun, not the verb. So first, community. All 3 of these are going to have an effect, a source, and a word of caution. All right, so community, effect, general. It's a general effect on us, right? Because we're talking about a general group of people. The source, these can be family, friends, professional peers. They give us feedback and observe. You can get this through feedback from this community and through observing your responses and reactions to them as environmental stimuli. But this comes with a word of caution. When it comes to your community giving you insight about yourself, take it with a grain of salt. They often mean well, but they usually think that they know a lot more about you than they actually do. Other word of caution. When it comes to your observation about reactions, also take it with a grain of salt. You've probably got a habit of justifying and writing off your responses to release yourself from personal responsibility. You have got to learn to get real with yourself. So that's community. Number 2 is coach. This effect is more focused. Where community had a more general effect, this effect is really focused. That's the role of a coach. The source is going to be a mentor, a teacher, a trainer. Now here's the word of caution with this one. Choose carefully. The right coaching style for you can bring massive positive results. The wrong coaching style for you, even if the coach is exceptionally skilled, even if it's the right coaching style for someone else, but the wrong coaching style from you, can bring more hurt, pain, and discouragement. So, choose carefully. Number 3, creation. And I'm talking about nature here. The effect is expansive renewal. This is where God designed us to be from the beginning. In creation, he instilled deep within the yearnings of our soul a desire and a need to connect with his beautiful creation. The source, I'm talking nature, flora and fauna, parks, gardens, hiking trails, camping. The word of caution is, of course, be safe. Be safe, but don't hold back. So there you go. That is one part of our personal application. Part 2 is intentionally forming beneficial habits around what we're learning about ourselves. It's important to develop self-awareness and self-intimacy, but that's really not doing us a whole lot of good if we're not also intentionally forming and crafting beneficial habits around what we're learning about ourselves. So, 3 techniques for a healthy habit formation. Number 1, release. Don't resist. Number 2, focus on the positive habit addition, not on the negative habit subtraction. Number 3, be clear, consistent, and kind to yourself. Okay, first, release, don't resist. This is a mentality. It is a necessary orientation towards beneficial habit formation. Simply put, if you fight a negative habit that you want to quit, it's going to dig in its heels and fight back. If you release it, it'll go. Sound too good to be true? It is. Unless you also practice the other two techniques. So, release, don't resist, but also focus on the negative or on the positive habit addition, not the negative habit subtraction. What you focus on grows in strength and fortitude. It is okay to identify the negative habits that you want to replace, but it's not always necessary. Often, you can just come up with a beneficial habit that you want to adopt. But if you have identified a habit that is not beneficial, that is not serving you, come up with a positive habit that can replace it, and then simply focus on forming that beneficial habit. You will be amazed that one day, the old habit has simply vanished. I promise this works if you're doing all three steps. So number 3, be clear, consistent, and kind to yourself. Be clear. Have a clear idea of what you want this newly formed habit to be. Is it a daily practice, a character quality you want to develop? The more clarity that you have, the more stable and secure your new habit will be. Be consistent. Often we tend to get really motivated in the beginning, and then we allow that motivation and effort to fall off over time. Or we go in fits and spurts. That consumes far too much energy and gives far too minimal results. Consistency is the key to momentum. Consistency is the key to beneficial habit formation. Be kind to yourself. Do your best, but then give yourself loving recognition and acknowledgement for doing your best. Then keep going. If you didn't do your best, that's okay. Hold yourself accountable. Accept responsibility and claim power over your choices and actions. And then lovingly do your best moving forward from there. You are worth your best effort. Next, professional. That was personal. Now we move on to professional. 2 things. Number 1, identify what's working well and systematize it. Number 2, identify what's holding you back, and stop it. Number 1, identify what's working well in your business or profession, and this can be made to work even as an employee, if you're a business owner or as an employee. So, if you're a business, identify what product or service is my best seller, what product or service has the highest margin, what product or service best defines and distinguishes my brand. If you're an employee, identify. We're identifying what's working well, right? Identify what skill set is my strongest. What skill set am I most passionate about? What skill set best defines and distinguishes how I want my employers and customers to perceive me? Once you've identified it, whether you're a business owner or an employee, systematize it. Design a process where it can continue working with minimal to no direct input from you. As a business, automate everything you can. Number 2, train and delegate responsibility to others. As an employee, discover or create ways to relieve your manager's headaches and stressors. However, design ways to do this that do not include you infinitely and indefinitely taking on more and more tasks and responsibilities. That's not the adequate solution. Number 2, identify what's holding you back and stop it. Now, this one can be tough. You have to be prepared not to allow yourself excuses. It's time to get real, raw, and ruthless with yourself. Often in business, we hold on to things that we should have let go of long ago. This also applies to employees. Ask, what am I holding on to that's holding me back because I've made it part of my identity? Got it? Great. Let it go. Number 2, ask yourself, What am I holding on to that's holding me back because I'm embarrassed to admit that I was wrong or misinformed? Let it go. Number 3, what am I holding on to that's holding me back because I'm afraid that the process of letting this go and adopting a positive alternative will make me even more uncomfortable, at least in the beginning, than actually just sticking with this thing that is holding me back, but that I'm used to. Got it? Good. Let it go. All right, wrapping up for today, I want to quickly cover 3 things that are contextually important to building and maintaining momentum. First, what gets in the way of building and maintaining momentum by optimizing your output? Obstacles and setbacks. Sometimes a single stone can derail an entire steam engine locomotive. So how do you maintain momentum through each setback that you encounter? You've got to learn to get actual value from your setbacks. You have got to learn how to literally leverage setbacks to build even more momentum from them than you had in the first place. You've got to learn how to use obstacles as literal jumping off points into even bigger opportunities. So, how do you learn to do all that? I'm going to do at least one entire session on this in the future once we've moved beyond the 7 steps. So you'll have to wait for the details on that. But that's what you're aiming for. Second, I promised we'd talk about rest. Sustained momentum is great, but we've got to rest sometime. So we need to understand the value of strategic rest. Rest in the right place and at the right time. So how do you maintain momentum through each period of rest that you need? You've got to make your rest periods proactive, not reactive. Whether it's an entire vacation or a quick nap, plan ahead, rather than expending effort and energy until you just crash. The crash never happens at a convenient time. You've got to make sure that your rest brings rejuvenation and restoration, not just recovery and survival. This is very important. Pay attention to what types of rest work well for you and be intentional about making that time for that type of rest. Whether we're talking naps, reading, meditation, walks, relaxation on the porch, whatever. And this is probably not watching movies or TV shows because of the way that they engage with your brain. You've got to make sure that you draw healthy boundaries around your rest so that everyone in your life respects it. Or, if they don't, you can anticipate that and protect this time. Here's the thing though. If you are already maintaining consistent momentum rather than that start, stop that we are talking about, you will naturally need a lot less rest than you do when you're doing that stop and go lifestyle. Finally, one of the most powerful scriptural principles that we can understand and apply to our life is the Hebrew concept of shalom. Shalom is usually translated in the Bible as peace. Now, that's not the worst translation, but our modern understanding of peace doesn't quite do this ancient scriptural concept true justice. We often think of peace as total stillness. And wow, does that sound amazing in this wild, crazy world that we live in? But the fascinating and incredible thing about shalom is that it's not stagnant. It's dynamic. It's an expansively still, stable, and secure space filled with abundant, active vitality. The ancient Hebrew concept of shalom teaches us the importance of a life where work, rest, and play are not imbalance, but actually in harmonious, vivifying, fully integrated communal relationship with each other. So there you go. That's the session.